Cruelty was not a foreign concept in the history of the Roman Empire. Power had always walked hand in hand with blood. But what unfolded during the reign of Caligula went beyond the familiar patterns of oppression. Under his rule, violence was no longer a consequence of power. It became a method of governance in itself. Caligula did not want to merely possess power. He wanted to inject it into the daily lives of people. For 4 years, no one in Rome woke up knowing whether they would survive the day. When Caligula ascended the throne in the year 37, the public was hopeful. The dark and paranoid reign of Tiberius had ended, and the young emperor was seen as a symbol of renewal. In his first months, he granted amnesties to political prisoners, recalled exiles, and organized public games. But this phase was brief. Toward the end of that same year, Caligula fell seriously ill, and when he recovered, he redirected his rule entirely. The first major concrete act was the execution of Tiberius Gemellus. Gemellus was Caligula's cousin and also his adopted son, an obvious potential rival to the throne. Caligula accused him of plotting against the emperor. There was no evidence. In the year 37, Gemellus was poisoned. This was the first unmistakable message sent to Rome's elite. Proximity to power was no longer protection. It was a liability. Next came Marcus Junius Silanus, a respected senator. His crime was vague and unspoken. He was perceived as insufficiently deferential to the emperor. There was no formal trial. Silanus was forced to commit suicide, his property was confiscated, and his family was erased from political life. This marked the beginning of a systematic purge of the Senate. The third case did not involve a single individual. Caligula began keeping certain senators close to him, inviting them to the palace, dining with them, and speaking of future plans as if they were trusted allies. Then, without warning, execution orders would be issued. This method was repeated again and again. The goal was not merely to kill, but to transform waiting itself into torture. This practice laid the groundwork for additional cases, with different senators and nobles eliminated through the same calculated process. Cruelty did not remain confined to the elite. Caligula openly turned against the people. During games held in the arena, if the crowd failed to show sufficient enthusiasm, he ordered soldiers to seize random spectators and drag them into the arena. These people were thrown to wild animals or executed in full view of the public. This was a concrete case of arbitrary punishment directed at ordinary citizens. Another case emerged during periods of famine in Rome. While the state treasury was being drained, the population suffered from food shortages. Despite this, Caligula disrupted grain distributions and deliberately delayed supplies in certain regions. Hunger became a tool of punishment. People were broken not only by fear, but by deliberately manufactured deprivation. Another clear example was the physical manifestation of Caligula's claim to divinity. Beginning in the year 39, he ordered statues of himself erected in temples. Ancient sources describe how he had the heads of God's statues removed and replaced with his own likeness. This was not merely an insult. It was coercion. Religious belief itself was subjected to the emperor's ego. One of the most dangerous episodes was the crisis surrounding the Temple of Jerusalem. Caligula ordered that a statue of himself be placed inside the temple. This command nearly triggered a massive uprising. For the local population, this was the desecration of the sacred. For Caligula, it was a demonstration of power. Even the eventual withdrawal of the order was enough to place thousands of lives in immediate danger. All of these events were part of a 4-year campaign of systematic destruction. Between the years 37 and 41, a large portion of Rome's ruling class was either executed or sent into exile. The population was repeatedly punished, starved, and humiliated. The state treasury was exhausted on personal projects and spectacles. This was not a single incident, but a level of concentrated cruelty rarely seen in history. When Caligula was assassinated by his own guards in the year 41, there was no outpouring of celebration in Rome. There was silence. Fear was no longer tied to a single man. Caligula had taught Rome one lesson clearly. When power goes unchecked, cruelty is not just possible, it is inevitable. Caligula did not enter history merely as a cruel emperor. He stands as one of the rare figures who managed to inflict such extensive and concrete devastation in such a short period of time. He was aware of what he was doing. He saw its effects, and still, he did not stop.